also spreading to Kenya, which has experienced bombings recently in the two towns in the coastal areas. And of course, there was the shopping mall attack back in September, and also in Tanzania. Why do you think there's been increased sympathy of Al-Shabab militants in that region of Africa?
I think the reason is that because in the neighboring countries like Kenya, you have a lot of Muslim communities in the coast region, where you could see a lot of youth who are unemployed, and these youth actually have a lot of frustration with the government, lack of jobs, and they are now actually siding with the Islamic groups inside Kenya, and also they are sympathizers with Al-Shabab. So I think the reason why Al-Shabab is easy for them to carry out attacks in Kenya is because you have these groups who have no employment, who have a lot of frustration with the government, and who are not happy how the government is doing in Kenya. And that's why you could see Al-Shabab is infiltrating with these Muslim communities in the northeastern Kenya. And that's why they already carried out attacks, and they are still threatening to carry out attacks. And the Al-Shabab, actually the only reason they're doing this is because they want to retaliate the Kenyan troops who are in Somalia, who are battling with Al-Shabab in southern Somalia.
But it makes me wonder, Abdulaziz, whether there are Islamist groups in Somalia or in Kenya or perhaps in Tanzania who are against Al-Shabab, who've spoken out against this militant group.
There are actually. I have spoken to the Kenyan Muslim Council who actually are against the ideology by Al-Shabab, but they are scared by Al-Shabab, and if they know if they speak out, that Al-Shabab will hunt them down and will actually kill them. So they don't want to pay that price. So they are really scared, they are frightened. But there are Muslim communities who are a large numbers who are speaking against Al-Shabab, but they don't have the power to actually fight against Al-Shabab. It's up to the security agencies in Kenya or in Somalia to actually take this action against Al-Shabab. But in Kenya, there are a lot of Muslim communities who are against the ideology of Al-Shabab.
But is the issue of security a front burner for the Somali government, perhaps? I know the President, Mohamud, missed, well, he was a close shave on his residential apartments. The presidential palace was attacked 2 days ago just because he was not in the building at the time. But does the government talk regularly about improving security or the security situation in the country?
They do actually, and they have been doing that for the last 3 years. They were saying that they're gonna implement a new strategy against Al-Shabaab, but they only keep saying that, but they don't implement. Actually, the critics of the government are saying there is no coordination between the security sectors in Somalia, and that's why Al-Shabaab is actually infiltrating with the security in Somalia, and that's why they're gaining access to a lot of places like the presidential palace. On Tuesday attack, only 4 Al-Shabaab members attacked the presidential palace. The president was not there at the time of the attack, but the prime minister was there, even though he survived. So the government is saying they're going to improve, and they're saying that, and they have been saying that, and they will keep saying that. But the question is how, and the critics are saying there is no coordination between them.
I know I must let you go now, Abdulaziz, but I can't help asking whether Somalia does have a standing army that's capable of fighting Al-Shabaab.
The government has a total of 20,000 troops. The 20,000 troops have no salaries, and they have no tools, and they have no capability to fight against Al-Shabaab. The government is saying that they are appealing to the international community to rebuild its army, but that hasn't been done yet, and the international community is reluctant actually to do that. The only way that Al-Shabab can be defeated is by the Somalis, and Somalis have been saying, if you restructure our army, we can defeat Al-Shabab, but the restructuring of Somali army hasn't done yet. The international community hasn't paid a lot of money. For example, the African Union troops in Somalia, one soldier gets 1,200 per month dollars, while the Somali troop or Somali soldier gets barely $100 per month. So you can see the difference. The Somali government is saying in the book they have 20,000, but the 20,000 they have is lack of money, lack of equipment, lack of tools, and they don't have the moral to fight against Al-Shabab.
Abdulaziz, thank you so much for throwing more light on the issue of Al-Shabab in Somalia. Thank you so much. Abdulaziz Osman is the VOA's Somalia service editor in Washington. Let's turn now to Burundi's lower house of parliament, which has passed a bill intended to curb the country's proliferation of churches. A government survey last year found there were 557 denominations practicing in the small Central African state. Our new regulations would require churches to have at least 500 members and a proper building. Evangelical churches mushroomed much more during and after the long ethnic-based civil war, which ended in 2005 after some 300,000 people died. Now, if no changes are made to the draft legislation, it will be signed by the president within 30 days or so, or it will be sent back to Parliament for a second reading. Now, once it's signed into law, then churches have about a year to comply with the new regulations. For a foreign church to be allowed to register, though, it will have to show that it had 1,000 followers. Now, here in Nigeria, over 1 million people are blind. Another 3.1 million have various degrees of visual impairments. That's because, according to the national survey conducted by the Federal Ministry of Health in 2008, it fears that the figures may have doubled since the last 6 years, with the prevalence of river blindness in some communities in the northern parts of the country. While the Nigerian Institute of Trypanosomiasis research devoted to fighting the scourge believes that with proper awareness, the disease can be eradicated.
We are now very close to...
This is Kachia local government area of Kaduna State. One of the most fertile areas of the state, blessed with lush fields, undulating hills and flowing river. Yet the lands have been left uncultivated by the inhabitants. They're afraid of contracting river blindness, a disease caused by a black fly that breeds along fast-flowing rivers.
They hatch from their pupae, they now emerge, and the first thing they do is to look for somebody to bite, to take their blood meal. And it is during that process of taking their blood meal, they can now ingest the parasite from an infected person. And after then, they can now start transmitting to other people. So river blindness is caused by a parasitic worm called Onchocerca bovolus.
The name of the disease is derived from its hallmark, which is blindness, even though there are other clinical manifestations.
For instance, if you want to really survey a village to know if that village has problem of river blindness, you can look at their bodies and see where there are what they call leopard skin. This leopard skin most often appears along the legs. It's just like patches of something like burnt area where you have white and dark spots.
According to the World Health Organization, the leading cause of blindness in developing countries, of which 80% is avoidable, is poverty. Micah Shabi is a sufferer. He contracted river blindness at a very young age.
We went to the farm and something happened with the first eye, and the first eye that's the right eye. Then we went, they even did operation for the first eye, and then after that They asked us to come back. So we didn't